The most humiliating thing that ever happened to me was when sagging your pants first became popular back in the 90s. And I didn't know that in order to do this safely, you needed to use a belt. And so I was a teenager in high school, and when I walked up to the front of the class to hand in a test, right there, standing in front of the teacher and the whole class, and perhaps most importantly, the hot girl in the class who was right there at the very front and was my friend's girlfriend, right there in front of everyone, including the hot girl. My pants fell right down because I was sagging too much without a belt. They fell down, and I bent over and snatched them up as quickly as I possibly could, literally just as they hit the ground. And ironically, it was that motion that actually made me visible, right? Because as I stooped to pick them up, that is when I was noticed by the hot girl. And perhaps the teacher, too. The only two people who saw me were the women sitting directly in front of and behind me. And the only one of them I cared about and who could see the whole entire thing was the hot girl. The only one who I cared about the opinion of. And she looked up at me and started to laugh, but then stifled her laughter, putting her hands over her mouth and glancing around to see if anyone else saw. And I too glanced around. Everyone else's eyes were still glued to their tests. Thank God. I turned around and looked at the teacher. I think she saw, but whether she had or not, she didn't seem, fazed by it. So I looked back to the hot girl, and our eyes locked. She understood the power she had. I could see it. The power she had to burst out laughing and, basically turn me into a laughing stock of the class. She recognized that power. I saw that look of recognition in her eyes as she glanced around and saw that she was the only one who had seen what happened. All right, but luckily, that look of recognition didn't come with any sort of look of malice, because luckily, she was part of my social circle. All right, so she just simply nodded to me calmly to assure me that my secret was safe with her, and then she went back to taking her test. All right, that look she gave me of assuredness, that nod of, you're cool, it's okay, I got this, don't worry. It was so reassuring, especially because it was coming from the hot girl in the class. All right, but she was a girl, a hot high schooler, so, would she keep my secret? I thought so. I thought she would, at least for some time, right? For a while. But eventually, women give in to their urge to gossip, and I wasn't about to find out how long she would keep it for. So after school, as the group of friends convened, I told everyone the story, thinking it was better they hear it from me and we laugh about it together than I act like I didn't want anyone to find out, and then I get laughed at behind my back as the secret sort of trickles from one person to the next. As these things will do, especially if it's a girl keeping the secret. They'll either tell their boyfriend or their best friend or both, who will then go on to do the same, and then it just cascades from there. And soon everyone will know about it, and within days you'll become a laughing stock of the school. But the reason I was able to be part of the quote cool group was because I was the funny one, the entertainer, the class clown, the fool. I was always making jokes at my own expense and, performing in these sorts of ways. Like, I might have even done that sort of thing as an act, right? I want to be that person who makes people laugh. And so, I would always know my friends were laughing with me rather than at me. And if they weren't, and they were laughing at me, well, then maybe they aren't my real friends. And, we are hanging out together for the wrong reasons. And that's something you do have to consider at times.